Modern audiences view classical portraiture as an aesthetic record of the past, static, decorative, and transparent. We treat these works as windows into a simpler history. But for the artists of the 15th through 19th centuries, the canvas was a dangerous place. In an era where the Inquisition and absolute monarchs policed every public thought, speaking your mind directly was often a terminal mistake. Survival required a specific kind of genius. Visionary painters became masters of the double image, engineering hyper-realistic illusions that functioned as transport ships for secrets, designed to be smuggled in plain sight. To understand these masterpieces, we have to look past the oil and the pigment. We have to treat the beautiful surface as a distraction and investigate the coded subtext hidden in the details. This search for hidden truth leads to the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C., and Leonardo da Vinci's portrait of a young noblewoman named Ginevra de' Benci. For centuries, this was filed away as a standard conservative status symbol. The elements are all socially correct. Her pale skin reflects her status, and the evergreen juniper behind her serves as a public declaration of her virtue. It is, by all appearances, a traditional 15th century marriage portrait. However, a close technical examination reveals something unexpected. Leonardo's literal fingerprints are embedded in the surface of the paint, where he used his hands to blur the transitions of the face, a technique that leaves a physical, intimate record of the artist on the sitter's skin. The real story is on the reverse side of the panel. Instead of a family crest or a name, Leonardo painted a specific emblem, a sprig of juniper bound by laurel and palm branches under a Latin banner that reads, "Beauty adorns virtue." Infrared studies eventually proved that this emblem originally contained the personal motto of Bernardo Bembo, a Venetian diplomat who was an intense platonic admirer of Ginevra, meaning this wasn't a gift from a husband, it was a secret commission from a devoted suitor. Leonardo utilized the rigid structure of a marriage portrait as a camouflage. He built a socially acceptable facade to safely house a private act of devotion that could never be expressed in public. In London's National Gallery, Caravaggio used a different mechanism of disguise in the Supper at Emmaus. He presents a brilliantly lit, hyper-realistic scene of the risen Christ being recognized by his disciples. To pull the viewer into his world, Caravaggio breaks the fourth wall. He paints a wicker fruit basket teetering on the very edge of the table, jutting into our reality as if it might fall and spill its contents at our feet. Focus on the weave of that basket. You'll see a single frayed twig curving upward. Directly below it, the basket casts a sharp crescent-shaped shadow. Viewed together, they form the unmistakable silhouette of a fish, the Ichthys. The fish was a dangerous secret. Early Christians used it to identify allies during persecution. One person would draw half the curve, and a friend would complete the other half. It was a life or death code. By hiding this symbol in the literal shadows of a fruit basket, Caravaggio smuggled a message of underground religious defiance into a work commissioned for the very authorities who would have suppressed it. Other artists realized they could hide truth in plain sight by simply changing the genre, using the cover of fantasy or horror to distract from a blistering social critique. In Hieronymus Bosch's Garden of Earthly Delights, the chaotic human pleasure is a diversion. The real subjects are the owls watching from the hollows of the landscape. To a medieval viewer, these birds represented those who preferred the dark over the light, serving as a silent, omnipresent warning that sin was vigilant even in paradise. Francisco de Goya weaponized this technique during a period of total societal collapse in Spain, using monsters to document a reality that was too dangerous to describe in words. His infamous black paintings, now in the Museo del Prado, are often viewed as supernatural nightmares. But Goya painted these directly onto the walls of his home while the country was being torn apart by war and a repressive inquisition. On one wall, Goya painted a coven of witches huddled before a goat demon. Directly opposite it, using the exact same dimensions and the same distorted, mindless expressions, he painted a religious pilgrimage to the shrine of San Isidro. In both scenes, he placed a single detached observer to the far right. By visually mirroring the occult coven and the religious procession, Goya made a silent, dangerous claim that both the Inquisition and the priesthood were simply different forms of the same mindless superstition. He used the horror genre to safely archive his disgust with the Spanish state. Deception works because we expect it to look obvious. We look for the horns and the distorted faces, but Edward von Gritzner's 1895 painting, Mephisto, proves that the most effective traps are the ones that look reasonable. The man in the painting is an elegantly dressed elderly gentleman in a red tunic. He has a subtle, polite smile and an ordinary, familiar face. There is nothing monstrous about his features. Yet this is Mephistopheles, the demon from the Faust myth. He arrives not to terrify, but to offer a bargain. His power is entirely dependent on his ability to appear charming, rational, and human. This is the ultimate rule of deception. A trap only functions when the surface feels safe. If the devil looks like someone you'd pass on the street, you never think to look for the contract in his hand. These master painters operated as code breakers. They understood that to survive their own time, they had to build flawless public faces for their work, while engineering hidden back doors for anyone willing to look closer. They left us a warning that remains relevant. The sleep of reason produces monsters. When we accept the world at face value, we become vulnerable to the illusions built by others. To find the truth, you have to refuse the comfort of the surface. You must investigate the shadows, find the fingerprints, and always ask yourself what the perfect illusion is trying to hide.